a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the wonderful world of Dr. Kevin. Yay! Here on OMTimes, where we're changing the world, wait for it, one Om at a time. This, the third Thursday of the month, like pretty much most third Thursdays of the month. We've had to mix it up a little bit here recently, but this is a normal third Thursday of the month, which means we have the pleasure of having the abnormal Rob Stewart from innercenter.org here to talk to us about the planetary influences. What is going on in the skies, the stars, what kind of hula is the celestial bodies doing, and what does it mean to us? As I'm getting ready to bring Rob on to tell us kind of what's going on in the stars over this next upcoming astrological period, I do remind you, astrology gives you more information with which to make better decisions. It allows you to know what the energies are going to be like, just like a weather forecast, only astrology is a lot more accurate. It tells you whether it's going to rain today or not. Today it said it was going to rain, and it did. So I took out an umbrella. If the astrology says that there's going to be some rain on your fifth house, you might want to take out your fifth house umbrella. That's all that it is. Don't give your power away to it. Don't let it make your decisions. Just let it figure into how am I dressing up my life today. Rob, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Dr. Kevin. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Good to talk with you.
So I like those weather analogies. They seem to work well for some reason for astrology for me. I don't know. Maybe one of these days there'll be a change in the weather and I'll compare them to something else, but I don't think it's happening this week.
Yeah, no, right on. Yeah, the weather is a great analogy, because, the thing about weather and seasons is that, we have our preferences as to, some of us really like sunny days, some of us really like rainy days. And but there's nothing inherently good about a sunny day. There's nothing inherently bad about a rainy day. It's just brings about different opportunities and different ways to utilize the weather and use it in a way that's productive. There's different opportunities with each. So I think it's a great analogy for astrology. And there's no bad or good. They're just different preferences. We have preferences. But every season, every weather has its advantages. And that's something, I hope we get across in these shows in terms of how to utilize the astrological energies in helpful ways.
And one of the things I do want to remind people is that this is a live call-in show. If you're listening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Thursday night, it means that you can call in at 202-570-7057. Again, that's 202-570-7057. And you can call in and you can ask a question about your own astrology. What does this mean to you? Whatever you'd like to ask Rob or myself, feel free to call in one more time at 202-570-7057. Ask your astrological questions that you would like to ask. And if you don't know your chart, if you're not sure where these things are hanging out with you, then contact Rob at innercenter.org. Get a chart done. Get a baseline of what you came in with. And then every third Thursday of the month, you can listen in at the Dr. Kevin Show. You can have your chart in front of you. You and Rob will be on a first name basis. You'll go, hey, Robbie, it's so-and-so. Remember, you did my chart 54 years ago. You remember me, right? I was wondering, what does this mean to my chart? And he's going to take out that, steel trap mind of his and go, oh, yeah, I remember. It means, yeah, that's what it means. So anyways.
Yeah, right on.
I love that. You got to love that, right? You bump into somebody and they go, oh, yeah, you did my chart. Hey, what's going on now? When did I do your chart? 3.5 years ago. Don't you remember? Have I seen you since? No. Yeah, no, I don't remember. Like, and I would. Why? Like, you think that you're the only chart I've done in 3.5 years? Get a clue. Let me see. What did your chart say? Needs to get a clue. Yeah, I remember you now. Okay, moving right along. That's the end of the comedy act for the show. Probably not. Tell us what's going on astrologically.
The sun has been in Taurus for about a month, and on May 21st, the sun will enter the sign of Gemini. And basically the movement of the sun in astrological terms, speaks to areas in life where we can shine light and really focus on this area of life and really make some positive changes, make some strides in this area of life. And so, wherever the Gemini is in your chart, this is an area where you can really thrive and pour your self-creativity into. It's a place where maybe we're being asked to take, a shining role or leadership role. But it always does take some challenges to navigate these areas of life wherever the sun is. But there's great rewards and great vitality that awaits us when we sort of welcome in that solar radiance of who and what we are. And so as the sun transits the constellation Gemini, there's something about shining light in areas of our life related to our perception. These are all sort of Gemini themes. Education, it's a great time for training. It's a great time for connecting with others, communication, listening to others. Gemini is really well known for being talkative and curious and exchange of information. But one of the big things about Gemini is the ability to listen, the ability to take in information, the ability to just absorb and information, so that later on you can say, "Oh yeah, I remember them talking about this and that," and it's sort of fact collecting, and it's a great time for gathering new information, new data. It's great for research. It's great for asking questions and getting answers and getting to the bottom of things. And so, as the sun transits Gemini, there's something about what's interesting is, where is our attention going? What are the shows that you're watching? What are you listening to? What are you taking in? This is something to pay attention to, because this is a period of time over this next month where there might be a lot of listening or watching or engaging in communication in some way. You have any thoughts on this, Dr. Kevin?
Well, I always look at Geminis as the great data collector. Gemini in itself is mutable air, and air, for those of you who might be familiar with the elements because of the elements that you use, or familiar with because of astrology or tarot, elements show up in a lot of different types of spiritual belief systems and spiritual tool sets and things like this. And so, it is of the mind. And so Gemini is a great data collector, but it's mutable air. So it wants to play with the data. It wants to shift. It wants to collect it. It's kind of out there, and it's kind of bring it in, almost like plankton, like a big whale coming and taking all that plankton and sifting it through. And it takes that data, and it's always kind of like having it roll around. And part of it is Gemini, I think of as always in somewhat that like insatiable mind, because it just wants more, because it's always taking that data in. And then the other thing, which makes it very important, is, that sun, for anybody who is, like my husband is Gemini. And in fact, several of the most significant relationships in my life have been Gemini. And, and you look at it, and sometimes people go, "Oh, our Gemini and Cancer, the next door, but are they really a good love match or whatever?" But here's where understanding your chart and having kind of a basic understanding of how things can affect you and stuff like this is that, you know, I have the majority of the energy of Gemini, and I have a majority of energy in Gemini in my 7th house, which is my house of partnerships. So the majority of Geminis that have been in my life that I've had the most meaningful, intimate relationships with were in my 7th house of partnership. That's where their sun was. Oh, Well, now that would kind of make sense, wouldn't it? Though it is cusping on my 8th house. So, but it's like 1 degree of my 8th house. So it's just enough so it kind of, it's the paint job on the outside. It's the front door of the house. The house is mostly Cancer. And it's got a back door that's in Leo, but its front door is in Gemini. And so I'm just sharing that because, again, if you know your chart, if you really, I said, astrology's always drawn me. I've always thought it's fascinating. There are very little pieces of Gemini, or very little pieces, talking of data collecting, there's little things that can make a difference. Because I've had people say to me, I'm going, oh, I'm dating a Gemini. Is that really going to work for you? Well, obviously they don't know my chart. Because it's like, well, yeah, it's kind of like right in my 7th house. I think it's going to probably work pretty good for me. Does that make sense, Rob?
Oh, totally. And, I often think that in a lot of, when people are comparing, for like relationships, there's a huge emphasis on the sun, which there always is in astrology because that's what is really put out there in a big way, is the sun sign, and, but there's so much more to the relationship, where challenges and ease is in relationship. The sun rarely speaks to those sort of nuanced things. But yeah, it's good point, about that sun in the 7th and everything, for sure.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't stop at a sun, like the sun is in your house of partnerships, to say it's an ideal match. But when the sun goes into Gemini, I know that there's going to be a lot of illumination because that's what the sun does. There's going to be a spotlight. Spotlight is going to be in my house of partnerships.
Right.
And
right.
That, and that in itself says something. There's a lot of other things between our two charts that go, oh baby. But
yeah.
That's just an example of one. So that's all I wanted to add in for people.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you know that, Dr. Kevin, and I was just throwing that out for the listeners regarding the sun sign stuff. Cool. So let's see. Back to the forecast here. I know we got a break here coming up, but the sun from May 21st through May 25th. This is right as the sun enters Gemini. We'll have the sun conjunct Mercury in Gemini, and also the sun Mercury will be trining Pluto in Capricorn. And so from May 21st through May 25th, this is a really good opportunity to sort of shed new light on our own thinking patterns, the types of information we're taking in, and also what type of subconscious thoughts are operating, or subconscious, what's our subconscious pulling to, what kind of information is our subconscious trying to pull towards us? Whenever Sun, Mercury trine Pluto, there's a lot of energy that can be focused in on our thinking patterns, these old stressful thoughts that run around in our mind. This is a time where they can, we have opportunities to sort of burn through them and let them go, simply by looking at them and questioning these stressful thoughts and seeing whether or not they're true. And oftentimes I think with stressful thoughts, at the root of the matter, those stressful thoughts aren't 100% true. And so why put energy in them? And May 21st through May 25th could be a great opportunity to go there. And it's also a time for powerful discussion, and sort of calling out truth, calling out data points, and doing that within our own our own life, like calling out those stressful thoughts for what they are, just stressful movies playing in our heads. Any thoughts on that, Dr. Kevin? The Pluto and Sun Mercury trining Gemini? Dr. Kevin? Well, I don't know if I got disconnected or Dr.
No, Pluto.
Okay.
Pluto is in what sign?
Pluto's in Capricorn, but it's still making a trine through the Sun and Mercury, which is at 0 degrees Gemini. Since Pluto is in a late degree, it's still making an aspect to the Sun and Mercury in Gemini.
Okay. I was going, wait a second. It's in Capricorn and it's trining Gemini.
Right.
How come that math wasn't showing up for me somehow in my head? In fact, I was so gobsmacked I wasn't even thinking about it.
Right. And, it's like the Mercury retrograde we're going through right now. So we've got to talk about all that too.
Yeah, yes, we're absolutely going to talk about this Mercury retrograde. But anyways, so I mean, I think that again that it's interesting to note that as you're having this trining going on and this looking for this like transformational stuff and doing this data collecting, that you're doing the Gemini moon emotional stuff. So depending on where it is playing out, you may be looking that it's time, because the houses are the houses are part of what makes astrology be able to give you a lot more nuance than people think that astrology does. I think you said astrology is like 5,000 feet. Like, astrology is up there like, yeah, that's your sun, that's your moon, that's your ascendant. But when you start getting really into the houses and you go, so like that moon that you're talking about again is going to be doing that ding, that kind of ding thing to that Pluto, but it's going to be doing it, and that is going to be, again, in my 7th house. So I'm looking at emotional stuff around partnership that's kind of go in. So you know what I'm saying, Rob? It's the
right
layers
yeah.
that people just kind of don't get. I've got a question for you when we get back. We'll be right back in a moment, right after this break here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break because she may not be having lunch again until September? Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job and getting back on his feet? I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. Today we're doing planetary influences. We want to know what kind of dance those celestial bodies are doing in the stars, in the skies, and how it's going to affect you. We are doing that with my astrological co-host, Rob Stewart from innercenter.org. That's innercenter.org. And that's where you go if you would like to have Rob cast your chart and take a look and see where you are astrologically. And remember, you can call in with your thoughts or questions or ideas at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. And Rob and or I are going to be happy to answer whatever questions you have. So, you know, again, I oftentimes hear people talk about the generalization of astrology, and as you're doing this stuff, I'm really drawn this particular astrological influence to try to really like drill down a little bit more to say, hey, again, it's not making your decisions for you, but if you look and say, well, where is that moon in Gemini that is going to be in that trine with that transformational Pluto, that's going to tell me the area of my life that I most likely need to be paying attention to, because that's where it's happening. And that by knowing that and having that awareness, I can be better prepared to support it, to work with it, to make the most of it. And so again, you know, like for me, that moon is going to be hanging out. And that Pluto that's in the sky is in a sign to sign trine with my natal Pluto, which is in Virgo. So I look at it and go, well, there's a little oomph power there too. It's not going to get hooked in on the thing, but a Pluto in Capricorn and a Pluto in Virgo are supportive of each other. So again, they build a story. There is this fabulous woven story one can take out of what's in your chart and what's going on in the skies and where you are in the progression of that chart. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, and well said.
Okay, so I'm going to let you keep going on what else you've got going on what you've got going on. We know you secretly are moving these stars and planets around. If you don't like something you're hearing, your complaint goes to Rob at idon'tgiveacare.org. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, so the next thing we chat about is Mercury retrograde. Mercury went retrograde on May 10th and will be in retrograde motion until June 1st. And, you know, for the listeners, whenever a planet is retrograde, it simply appears as though it's moving backwards in the sky. And of course, that planet is not moving backwards in the sky. It's just that from our perspective here on Earth, and basically the way the orbits are occurring, the Earth's orbit and the planet's orbit, it seems as though that planet's moving backwards, much like, you know, when you overtake a car on the highway and that the car that you're overtaking appears to move backwards when in fact it's not, you know. And so when a planet's in retrograde motion, it's a time to sort of revisit and reevaluate the energies of this planet. And with Mercury, it's about our thinking process. It's about our communication style. It's about how we are taking in information, what we're doing with that information. And, you know, Mercury retrograde is well known and sort of, it's got a bad name, I think, on most websites and things you can find online, in that it's a time sometimes where miscommunication can occur. It's a time perhaps sometimes we have to focus a bit more on communication to have it go without kinks in the communication lines. Misunderstandings can occur during this period, but the real heart of a Mercury retrograde is to really do inner reflection and to it's a great time for meditation and for quiet time and for tuning into your intuition. I'm forgetting which astrologer said this, but I really like this, in that they said basically whenever a planet goes in retrograde, it's sort of like the unseen hand moving things around in life. And so that, run into certain people, or you have certain communications, or you have these sort of things occur in life. And Mercury retrograde is one of those things with regards to communication. And it's just a time to really take the effort in communication, just so that there isn't miscommunication that's occurring. Does this make sense, Dr. Kevin, to you, what I'm describing?
Not at all. I was completely confused. I couldn't take that information at all. I mean, you would think Mercury was retrograde. So where is Mercury retrograde? What's
Right.
the degree?
Right. So Mercury currently is in Gemini, and is at the first degree. And so Mercury will continue to go retrograde, and will enter Taurus, I believe, on May 23rd. And then will continue through Taurus until June 1st, at which point it goes direct, and will continue back up through Gemini after that.
So, again, the application. I look at this Mercury retrograde, and I go, it's in that 7th house for me again. And so it's not just that I have to look at the cafungal of communication, that I have to go inward. A couple of things I always like to remind people on Mercury retrograde, because I've done a lot of shows on Mercury retrograde through the years. And in fact, I've done whole specials that were just on Mercury retrograde, getting ready to prepare for a retrograde, because there are a lot of advantages that you can do. There's a lot of positive things you can get out of a retrograde. It's like being aware of something and avoiding the pitfalls of it, and avoiding the pitfalls of Mercury are really easy. You know that it's not a good time to be like signing a lot of contracts or committing to things in action that are likely to have some kind of miscommunication attached to them. Like you go to sign the legal documentation and a name is spelled wrong, or there was a clause, or somebody was half asleep and they left out a middle of a sentence, and suddenly you realized you were declaring yourself that you were going to pay for your children's life until you died, whatever they wanted to do. And that's not exactly what you meant to say. So it's like, okay, if I don't have to commit to something and take forward action on it, now's a good time to just review it, to go that inward, as Rob was talking. With this, it's a good time. Now, that Gemini is all about the data gathering. I know I try to simplify it, but it's the data gathering. It's like, I've got to review the data I've gathered. I've got to make sure that I actually know what it was that I got. Because I may have thought I got a blue tiki dish, and what I realized is I got a tiki-colored bluebird bowl, and I didn't know it because I didn't go back and check. It kind of sort of looked, because my brain wasn't completely present outside of my body when I was picking it up off the shelf. And so with these things, you kind of, okay, I got to check 2 or 3 times. It's a good time to look in. It's a good time to look at when the last Mercury retrograde does. And I've had 2 or 3 of my clients doing this right now in this Mercury retrograde. I pulled the dates right up and I said, why don't you go back and look at these times? Because things that show up there that seem to resolve or disappear will come up on that next Mercury retrograde or the retrograde after that. And it's time to bring it to completion. Those are the things you can bring to completion. And no, it's the right time to do it because of that Mercury retrograde, because it went from a retrograde to a retrograde. So there's a lot of time to go. Now is my time for planning. Now is my time for plotting. Now is my time for reviewing. And when it goes back into Taurus, again, you want to see, where is that falling in my chart? What is the area that's most going to be affected by that need to do that? And a Mercury in Taurus is going to be very different than a Mercury in Gemini, and it's going to be asking you to look for different things, examine different things, have, you may want to be looking at, how do I communicate my sense of value, and are they my values anymore? My sense of security, what brings me stability in the world? That Mercury, you may find that you're starting to realize that maybe you keep on thinking you're asking for one thing in your relationship, because again, for me, it's in the 7th house, that to make you feel safe or secure or to feel grounded, only to realize that they're clearly not hearing what you're asking for, so you're clearly not languaging it in the way that they're taking it in. That would be a Mercury retrograde discovery. Does that line up with you, Rob, when I say it that way?
Yeah, 100%. Right on. And I feel, a big thing that I run into during Mercury retrograde, and I know it affects everyone a bit differently. Some people are more susceptible to the themes of all this, but for me, during Mercury retrograde, one of the big things I notice is it's just difficult to process data, whether it's at work or you're doing crunching the numbers or trying to take in information. When Mercury's retrograde, it's really difficult to, absorb all of it. Because when Mercury's retrograde, it's basically saying, hey, what information is important now? And so, the day-to-day tasks of data in, data out, that's really not, we don't thrive in Mercury retrograde by crunching the numbers. We thrive at looking back, reviewing things that have passed, connecting with old friends, reviewing things in the past. So if anyone's feeling a bit cloudy and, frustrated with themselves because they're not, the numbers at work aren't lining up the way they'd like, be gentle with yourself and know that this challenging sort of fog that I know I feel at times very strongly will pass when Mercury goes direct. And that's something I've learned to absolutely know through direct experience. So let's see. And Dr. Kevin, you mentioned Mercury retrograde and Gemini will operate differently than Taurus, and those are great examples. And Taurus, revisiting our value system, revisiting what we find important for our security and safety and things. So these are some of the themes that would become more noticeable after May 23rd, when Mercury gets back into Taurus. So the next thing is we have Mars entering Aries on May 24th. Mars in astrology represents our action. It's our assertion. It's the pursuit of goals in our life. It's how we strive for things, the way that we get things done. And with Mars leaving Pisces and entering Aries, it's sort of like a new lease on life. It's like we all are given the steering wheel of life. And, in Aries, it's about, who or what do you identify as? Where do you need more independence in life? Where do you need to step into more leadership? There's something about breaking away from the old with Aries and beginning something new in life in some way. And in Aries, it always requires boldness. It requires courage. And there is a sense of adventure when Mars is moving through Aries. So these are some of the themes. While Mars is moving through Aries, let me just check to see how long that will be.
Well, one of the things as you're checking that, Rob, is, Mars doesn't necessarily like to be in Pisces. Mars has the more of the energy of male fire, yang fire, and it's hanging out in yin water. And so, and as it makes this transition, that Mars energy, again, not only do we want to look at where it hits you in your chart, because that's going to be the place where you're going to find, it hits me in my 4th house, which is the house of home. So, as that Mars goes in, I'm suddenly going to want to clean the house. It's time to do spring cleaning. I'm going to have energy to do house projects. I'm going to have energy to to clean my house both physically but also metaphorically. I may find that I'm more energized in the home because that's where it falls for me. But it is going to be this energy, this kind of energy that where you're going to find that that's where my energy is being directed towards more so than other places. Make sense?
Right. Yeah, right on, for sure.
So you're going to look at, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, you were going to look up, did you look up the Mars Aries?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so July 5th. So Mars will be in Aries through July 5th, and then it enters Taurus. So, yeah, it's in there for a good month plus. And it's a time to sort of take the driver's seat in life. And, what is it that you need in your life? And what new pursuits does it involve? So we also have, on May 28th, we have Venus entering Taurus. And Venus is very comfortable in Taurus. It rules Taurus. It's one of the two signs it rules. And Venus represents in our life the impulses we have towards friendship and harmony. It's about love. And in the sign of Taurus, these themes really thrive when they're done slowly, when it's done in a grounded way, when there's sort of a conservative approach to these impulses towards friendship and harmony and love. It's a time to really trust patience and finding stability in those areas of life. And build upon trustworthiness and predictability, to keep things simple, really, is what Taurus is all about, but also in a sensual way, in a way that appeals to the senses. And so some of the themes with Venus transiting Taurus are related to living according to your own value systems, self-reliance, self-esteem. Maybe there's an emphasis on turning your skills into money. Are you being compensated enough for your skills? Are you valuing your skills in that way? Also, what do you need to be financially secure? These are some of the questions and themes with Venus as it transits Taurus. And I'll just check to see how long Venus will be in Taurus, but we also, Venus will be squaring Pluto on May 27th. And so May 27th is a day where there could be some challenges in friendships or relationships in life. And, maybe there's some power struggles. Whenever there's Pluto, sometimes it shows up as power struggles or, strong language and hashing things out. But Mercury on that day, May 27th, Mercury also trines Pluto. And so the sort of pathway through any challenges that appear in relationships or friendships in your life is through talking and bringing things to light, speaking your truth, and calling a spade and hashing things out in a truthful and open and conducive way, and talking through it, really. So these are themes to remember on May 27th. If there are relationship and friendship challenges that arise, there's pathways through it according to the astrology through simply speaking, talking, and ironing out, which it always is the solution, but particularly so on May 27th with that configuration.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you.
And you could be me?
For just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the last segment this week of the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. We are doing Planetary Influences. We're checking out what's going on with those celestial bodies and how it is affecting the world around you. And if you would like to call in with 202-570-7057, we may be able to give you some insights about how it could be affecting your world. Again, that's 202-570-7057. I'm here with Rob Stewart from innercenter.org. If you have never had your chart done or it's been a long time, you'd like to update it, you'd like to have it progress, you want to kind of start using astrology as more of a tool in your life, then you can go to Rob Stewart, go to innercenter.org, and you can book your astrology appointment with Rob. So, Rob, you were saying that this Venus is squaring Pluto, and it's time to kind of be frank in your conversations in relationships that there are things up, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So what else is going on astrologically?
Yeah, let's see. So May 30th, we have a new moon in Gemini. New moons are when the sun and the moon are in the same location in the sky. They're conjunct in the sky, and new moons indicate new beginnings, new cycles, new moon cycle, and these cycles represent the month ahead, but they also do represent sort of the 6-month cycle as well, and so they offer opportunities to bring new direction into life. And with the May 30th new moon, which is in Gemini, it's at 9 degrees Gemini, a few things. We have Mercury squaring Saturn during this new moon. Mercury's in Taurus, Saturn's in Aquarius. And so this is really asking, in this new beginning, can we open ourselves to new perspectives, to new information? Can we take in new information? With Mercury square Saturn, sometimes, there can be challenges in communication or in taking in new information. And so with this new cycle, we're being tested, so to speak, as to how do you communicate when there are challenges on the table? How do you communicate and take in and listen to what the other person's saying, even though you may not agree? These are all sort of some of the themes where we have opportunities to work with this, and over time, through these types of communications, we become more fluid and well-rounded in those areas of life. And so we're really being asked to be more curious with a new moon in Gemini. We also, I mentioned Mercury squares Saturn. Saturn is also squaring the north and south nodes. And when this is occurring, whenever Saturn is squaring the north and south nodes, which it has been doing for a little bit here, everyone is being asked to make new decisions with regards to Aquarian features. And Aquarian themes are related to sort of finding your own tribe, finding groups of people of like mind. We're also being asked to really, vision what is the world that you want to live in, and there might be some challenges to create that world that you want to live in, and we're all being asked to make these decisions in our life and connecting with like-minded people and creating the world you want to live in, and creating your goals and working towards your goals. So these are some of the themes that this new moon is saturated with, and we have opportunities to explore these themes over the next month and 6 months ahead. Any thoughts?
One of the things that I would like to point out here is I would like to point out as well that when I think of these planets, and they're all squaring, and when I talk to people about squares, a lot of time I talk about the internalized struggle. That there's a struggle that's going on. It's squaring. It's creating. It's something within you that's fighting with something else in you. And I don't know if you've ever looked at squares that way. I assume that you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in this, whether it's that Venus squaring Pluto or this Mercury squaring the Saturn or Saturn squaring the South Node, if you do have these communications and these things that you're putting in place, and with the new moon in Gemini, you're one of the things is about allowing a different, either completely new undiscovered data in that changes some kind of old data or gives you some kind of very different view or perspective that may create a struggle within you with this square. And so, as we were saying before, with the Venus-Pluto square, you frankly have to address somebody about in a relationship with something. But in all of these squares, you need to start and go, I need to identify what struggle is going on with me, within me, about this, that until I get clear on, I cannot be clear with it with you.
Right.
Oftentimes, we are projecting an internal struggle onto, so I see this in couples work all the time, because I do a lot of couples counseling. And I see this all the time, where one partner is taking that internal structure and that internal struggle, and they are actually painting the other person as the way in which they can play it out outside of themselves.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we all do that, unfortunately, to some degree. Some of us more than others, but absolutely.
Yeah. So with these squares present, as you are looking at these square energies, and and I always work with clients and have them mark certain days that they need to go and review, that are going to be particularly challenging for their chart, the energy, or a really good opportunity that it's a good time to not to miss that window. I would be, so start it with me, myself, and I, and then bring it out. And that's all I wanted to add.
Right. Yeah, I mean, great point. These squares, oftentimes we experience them through some friction outside of ourselves, but the truth is it's really just reflecting an inner struggle within ourselves. And so that's, to really come to peace with the challenges in our life. To me, I 100% agree with what you said. There's a inner, got to start with looking at deeply within one's own self and see where we're in argument with our own self and projecting apart outside of ourselves. Because I feel that the things that really anger us in life are things that we're coming to peace within our own being about our own self, but we're confronting it outside of ourselves. Let's see. So that's the new moon in Gemini. June 13th, Mercury re-enters Gemini in forward momentum. And so whenever Mercury's in Gemini, it's a lot of communication, a lot of discussion, a lot of taking in information. It's sort of like, just watching the YouTubes or whatever, whatever Instagrams, whatever people do. There's just a huge thirst for information, connection, communication, and curiosity related to data, Aries things. You spoke to that earlier about Aries information, data collection. And so June is going to be a time where, everybody's might be kind of busy just exploring, listening to things and all that stuff. It's a great time to learn. It's a great time to teach. These are all Gemini and Gemini sort of qualities. And I just want to say real quick, full moon, June 14th in Sagittarius. Full moons are a time for letting go, for releasing things that are no longer serving. Keeping what does work and letting go of the rest. These are sort of themes for full moons. And with the full moon in Sagittarius, with the sun and the moon opposing each other and squaring Neptune, this is a time to really look at what beliefs are no longer serving you. Whenever Neptune is making aspects in this way, we're sort of being asked to look at where in life are you seeing what you want to see instead of the entirety of reality itself. So this full moon, June 14th, we're sort of being confronted with, what is it that you really, what illusions do we have in our own lives? Illusions aren't bad, but sometimes they guide us astray. And so with this full moon, there's something about letting go of what beliefs are no longer serving you, full moon in Sagittarius. And with Mars directly conjunct Chiron during this full moon, that we might be hesitant to take action or assert ourselves or assert beliefs with all these things. So this is a time to be gentle with yourself, to let go of any old beliefs that are no longer serving, and take action in ways that are healthy and right for you. So these are some of the themes related to this full moon.
So one of the things I want to say about that Neptune, and again, one of the things is, I'm going to say it ad nauseum, it depends on where this Neptune is transiting in your chart and where your Neptune is to really get the full fledge of where this illusionment may be happening, where clarity is being requested. But one of the things that always stood with me that I learned back in the horse and carriage days of astrology, when they were predicting a motorized vehicle and everyone laughed. No, is that when we let go of the illusionary dream of Neptune, we get a clarity will come with that will give us the dream that was hidden behind it, that we oftentimes didn't even know existed, and over time will be far superior to whatever dream you let go of. Because the illusionary dream of Neptune oftentimes has to do with how your view of yourself or the world or what you should want or should desire or any of those things, again, depending on what the new Neptune is going to say the area of life we're talking about, can oftentimes be a response to a wounding from your own upbringing, your own environment, an experience, a bad time, but something. And so we create a dream that is impractical, or we create a dream that is not really well suited for us, but is suited for something, some false us that we were given. And so when we can let that go, we get it replaced with this dream that is like a tailor-made piece of clothing that we suddenly can thrive in. But we can't see it as long as we have the Neptunian illusion that was given to us usually from our upbringing or childhood, that stands in the way.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. Right on. Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to Mercury going direct, and there's a lot of interesting energy ahead to work with and learn through and grow with, and that's why I love astrology. I think it's a great way to be self-reflective and peer deeper into our own lives.
Well, you and I are going to peer deeply into the skies, not to be confused as peer deeply into each other's eyes, a month from today. We'll talk to you then, Rob.
All right. Take care. Thanks a lot.
That's Rob Stewart from innercenter.org. Thank you for joining us on the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes.